It is another day, which means another podcast. I am Taylor Jackson. Thank you for listening to the podcast. I really appreciate you spending your time with me every day. Hopefully, it is while you're doing something interesting. I don't know what you're up to. Maybe you're driving a car. Maybe you're walking. Maybe you're on a treadmill. Maybe you're walking a dog. Maybe you're making ice cream. Maybe it's midnight where you live and you've just been out partying for quite some time, and you're listening to me now. Wherever you are, I appreciate you being here and spending your time with me. So today I'm talking about something that is, I guess, a little more important to me, and I guess some of the struggles that I went through when I was first getting into photography, being a very introverted person. I was also, I would say, socially not really at the same level, or I didn't feel that I was at the same level as a lot of my peers. So if we went out somewhere, I felt like I was always the one that was either unable to carry on a conversation, or I was the one that was just quiet, and by an hour into whatever was going on, I was ready to go home, because I was I just felt out of place everywhere. So moving into photography, the I guess the reason that I liked concert photography was the fact that I could just show up and everything was loud. I didn't have to talk to anybody. I could just take pictures, and then I would usually go I would say hi to everyone for 10 minutes, and then I'd leave. And that was kind of my happy place, that I knew that I could go in, I could make them super happy with the photos that I took. I could have a lot of fun taking the images, and then I could go home, and that, I guess, that time that I invested scaled into creating stuff that a lot of people were going to look at and a lot of people were going to like for future years to come. So I really kind of got a lot from that. And the other kind of the aspect that I guess I began photography with was also skateboard, snowboard culture as well. And those are also kind of pretty independent sports for the most part, that yes, you can kind of do them with people, but at the end of the day, you can also just go out on your own, which is what I was kind of doing a lot. So in the beginning that I would go out snowboarding by myself, and I was, I guess, known enough because I was there all the time in the board park, and I would just kind of camp out beside a jump or camp out beside a rail, and I wouldn't even really say hi to anyone that was coming by. It was just we all kind of knew each other, and they knew that they'd probably get those images at some point, so they would just come by and they'd do something, and I'd take a photo of them. And that again is kind of the spot that I felt the most comfortable. And when I was a small photographer, that was what I learned was photography for me. And then when I started moving into even just photographing any people, so once it moved from concerts and I was no longer just going to live shows that were super loud, and I was actually doing band promos, it was really hard for me to really make a good photo if the band didn't know what they were doing. So a lot of guys would walk in and they'd be we've seen a million band photos, we're gonna do this pose, now we're gonna do this pose, now we're gonna do this thing, we want this photo, thank you, send us, how much do we owe you? So that was kind of where I created my best work, was when I had literally no control over the scene, that they just knew exactly what they were doing, and they were not quote unquote rock stars, I guess. So they just kind of walked in and just made my portfolio for me. So just by kind of knowing the better bands in town that all the other bands were looking at, I got that credibility of shooting their band promos, even though I really had no idea what I was doing at that point. Whenever I got a band that was a lot more like me, that they're we like music, but we don't really know how to do this photo thing, it was very hard for me to step in and be okay, you need to do this, you need to do this. And I had no real idea how to communicate what I wanted to happen in my head. Everyone, up until that point, it was just so easy because I was just documenting whatever was happening. And now actually being in control of the scene and the situation was a lot more challenging for me. And I really didn't know what to do. And especially when you're in a situation like that if you're photographing a band, they're pretty cool dudes usually, and you have to be this nerdy introverted kid that controls and makes a good photo out of them if they don't know what to do. That's a really challenging, I guess, position to put yourself in. So I learned over time that it was easier for me to work with solo artists for photos, that we could just go out for a walk and just do things. And I was a lot more able to create great work with a smaller group of people. So that's kind of where I began. That was the first step, was just okay, so it's really challenging to take a photograph of 6 of you guys, But if it's like one solo acoustic artist, I can begin this. So that was kind of my stepping stone. I learned how to make one person look good, and then I kind of stepped that up to look 3 people look good, and then started building from there. And a lot of it was also I rely a lot on locations. So whenever like we'd go out, that I do like weddings and engagement sessions in the same way today, that we'll go out and we'll just kind of keep moving. Like we won't really stop anywhere for too long a period of time. And this comes back, like I'm like pretty not terrified, but shooting in front of like a white wall backdrop where we can't go anywhere is not my version of a happy place to be for photography. I like to be able to like be like, okay, this isn't 100% working. Let's take a walk. And usually in that walk, hopefully whoever I'm taking photos of, they've had a moment to think about it. It's like, oh, like we'd maybe like to do this pose, or this would make a nice photo that I would enjoy. So it's kind of like giving myself time to think a little bit, and also giving the couple time to think a little bit and to readjust, and to, I guess, like that we are all creative together. And by finding a good location with lots of smaller locations within a short space, I find that was kind of like how I could make band promos work, and that's how I could make engagement sessions work. And that's how I eventually started making weddings work, that we go into, like, we'll find a spot, we'll start at a park, but I know that I'm not going to be spending more than like 20 seconds kind of at each individual spot. And the more that you take pictures, the more you realize what spots really work well. And you just stop at all the good ones, and stopping at all like the good spots. And once you get to a point that every single location works really well, you get a very, very extremely high yield when you go out for even a half-hour shoot. So I've also talked about a lot here that my shoots are a lot shorter, that I'm not usually out there for like 5-6 hours with a couple. It's like it's 35 to 45 minutes, like as a maximum usually. And that's because I feel like we do so much so quickly, because I want to keep things moving, and I want to keep, I guess, myself comfortable and the couple comfortable as well, because for the most part, like attracts like. So, unfortunately, I'm not getting like the amazingly introverted couples that know exactly how to pose every single weekend. I'm kind of getting people that are more like me, that have an understanding of photography, and they've seen what looks good on Instagram, but it's more of a struggle for them to be able to create that look than somebody else who just like is just like exuding confidence and just knows exactly how to do it. So moving into weddings and kind of dealing with introverted nature there, it's actually a lot easier than I thought. In the beginning, I was really young, so it was challenging for me to connect with people that were like 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 years older than me when I was like 19, 20. So that was really a challenging time, and it took a lot of my effort and energy. I would leave those weddings like completely drained. There was like no way that I could shoot 2 weddings in a weekend. I would be like physically unconscious if I tried to do such a thing. But the older that I got, and the closer in age that I got to my couples, and the closer in experiences, and the fact that like we all kind of do the same things, and that eventually people exactly like me started hiring me, I feel like that's when it switched from like being a really, really challenging mental space to be in all day to something that is actually just okay, that they seem to understand how I am, and they understand how they are, and together, like, we don't need to, like, all their friends are not going to be usually the most high energy, just like crazy party people. And that kind of all goes back to me, because that's the image that I'm putting out there into the internet, that I'm not like this person that's on stage like yelling at people, getting them pumped up like Tony Robbins or whatever. That all my content for the most part is like a lot more laid back, and if they watch my travel show, they realize that I'm never like the typical travel host, like smiling and like dancing. It's like just like, I don't know, I talk about whatever's going on, and a lot of my humor is really dry. I don't try to oversell things. It's just like that, I don't know, I just report on my experiences, and it seems like my couples find that, and they connect with it, and they get it, and that's a lot more them than any other personality type. So over time, it's crafted to kind of be helpful, but in the beginning, it was very hard. I definitely do have to kind of prepare myself going into wedding days that I know that are going to be a little bit crazier. Like if I'm going into like a 500 person Italian wedding day, I know that I'm probably not going to want to book another wedding the day after that. And then also just like going into the actual day, just having your skills really dialed and knowing the technical element of things really does help, that if you don't have to think about that at all, and you can just focus on actually communicating and dealing with the people of the wedding day, that really does make things a lot better. So in situations, I really do kind of rely on, I guess, just being a lot more relaxed, and I try not to overpose in the beginning. So one thing that I've learned is that if you step in really early on and you take full control of the situation, like say you're at an engagement session and you walk in and you go to the first location and you just like start moving them around exactly, and it's like, I want your head like this and tilt to the left like this much, and now get that is not a situation that I really, really want to be in, because when you take control that early on, unfortunately, they're going to look to you for that for the rest of the shoot. So what I do is I start really lightweight, and just like walking in, I kind of give them the brief of like how this is going to go, and I'll tell them like that that I'm not going to pose them too heavily. Like, I want you guys to be you guys. Like, basically, if you're smiling and being happy, anything else you do within that is kind of fair game. I'll kind of shoot around what's going on, and if I have any suggestions, like I'll chime in with them for sure. But I want you guys to be you at the end of the day, and most people get that. That's why they hired me. That they, even though an engagement session is a bit of a weird thing because you're just like going with the three of you to take photos, they do kind of want more of a documentary style look and feel. Again, that seems to be what resonates with their personality and their wants and beliefs in what wedding photography should be. So I set that stage really early on. I reinforce that again whenever we are when we're at the actual wedding day. And for family photos is the one time that like you for sure have to step in. But the way that I offset that task a little bit is simply because of the logistics of it, that I don't know who everyone is, but I can find a bridesmaid or I can find a groomsman or a family member that probably knows who like at least 80% of the people are. And if they don't know who those people are, they can talk to somebody they know who to talk to figure out who like Aunt Sally is, and they can go find her. So I have my couples come together with a list of like, here are the family photos that we want. And I tell them like, give a copy to me, give a copy to a bridesmaid, groomsman, family member, somebody who can find these people. And if they step in, usually like they want to be the hero too. They want like the bride's day to go amazing. They don't really care about the groom usually. But they want the day to go amazing. They want this situation to go very fast because they know that after this they get to go to cocktail hour. So they usually step in, and it's usually an assertive person that they ask to do this. And that assertiveness really does help me out a lot, because I can't really be the person like yelling at strangers, just because like that is my most uncomfortable place. If I have to be like, and I need you and you, like, and putting together, it's way easier just to kind of solve that problem in like the first meeting or the first like phone call or wherever, to make sure that they have somebody that is willing to take that role, that wants to yell at family members and get them all in one spot. The other thing that does is like logistically, it takes a 25-minute shoot down to like a 10-minute shoot for family photos, because they can be getting the next people on deck ready to go. So it really, really does help out a lot. And even if I have a second photographer or a wedding planner who says that they'd like to do that role, in some circumstances, I guess it depends on the wedding. Like if it's like a black tie, like $100,000 wedding, maybe it is the wedding planner that steps in, that I request to do that. But for my typical couples that are just there to have like a fun time and a good party, it's not a breach of weirdness, I guess, to have one of their friends or family do this. So that's how I kind of overcome that moment. The other thing that I guess like is also challenging for me is walking in initially to like the bride's room usually, or the groom's room, where everybody's getting ready. And I just if I try to like talk and be part of the scene immediately, I feel like I'm just like failing at being like a human. So what I do is I just like take a few photos and I just kind of let them warm up to the fact that I'm going to be this dude following around with a camera all day. I'll like obviously communicate a little bit, but for the most part, I'm super quiet. Like they all know each other really well. They don't need me like chiming into the conversation. If they ask me any questions, like, yeah, whatever, like I'll answer, but I'm not really trying to be like the center point of the room, or I'm not really trying to be an entertainer or anything like that, that whatever's happening, whatever they're doing, I'm just going to be documenting it. And I set that pretty early on, that I'm really not there to take control of every single scene. And my couples know that's something going into the wedding day that they know from me. So yeah, hopefully this has helped a little bit. Being an introverted photographer, it's not really as challenging. It actually makes, I guess, a lot of sense. My friend Michael said that it's kind of like you can't really, you can learn to be extroverted, but you can't ever really learn to be introverted. So it's maybe a good thing if you are an introverted photographer, because maybe you're a little bit more observant and, I don't know, in the wedding photography scene, I think it's I would say it's better to be to rely a little bit more on introverted, quiet tendencies, at least in the style of photography that I do, because I don't want to be like the center of attention during the wedding day at all. That is all on the couple. So I guess my personality type kind of assists that. So hopefully yours as well. Thanks for listening today. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you learned something from this, or at least you learned that you're not completely alone as the only introverted wedding photographer in this field of like fashion photographers that are like yelling at models. But I really am a believer that a lot of my portfolio has come together because of the comfort of my couples and the fact that I'm willing to work fast and quick and get the photos whenever they're happening, rather than, and shooting kind of the in-between moments rather than just like carefully composing and like positioning every single element in the frame. So I rely a lot more on just like how things are going, and that goes back to like my concert roots and my snowboard, skateboard roots. So that's where that built from, and I think that I'm pretty happy with it. So thanks for listening today. I'll be back again tomorrow with the podcast, and Patreon, the Secret Podcast, has just gone up today too. So if you are a member of Patreon, head over to the Secret Podcast. The Secret Podcast is essentially, it's for Patreon members only, and it is a full length, I guess like even longer. It's always way longer than this podcast, but it's an Ask Me Anything. So any questions you have, any business, marketing, whatever, I'm always happy to answer it. Basically, you just plug it in the comments of this episode of the Secret Podcast number 7, and then the Secret Podcast number 8 will be the answers to all those questions. So thank you for listening to today's daily podcast. I'll see you again here tomorrow, same time, same. It's your phone. Back to the awkward outros. Bye.